welcome to Fade In, presented by Carnegie Screenwriters. I am your host, Daisy Jade, and today we have with us Ian Altenbaugh, who is a filmmaker and producer here in Pittsburgh. What I would love to hear is, how did you get started in the business?
Well, anybody who gets started in the business can probably say it's a slow and methodical process. I always wanted to work on movies. It's kind of cliche in that regard. I always wanted to work on movies. I was always watching movies as a little kid, movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching as a little kid. A lot of horror movies, a lot of things with creatures, puppets, special effects.
Cool, yeah.
Anytime you could kind of go from one world to another world, that was what I always found to be the most interesting aspect of movies. Stuff that really, really kind of got your imagination working.
Yeah.
And I was always a very imaginative kid, making setups, staging little plays and making some home movies that'll never see the light of day and doing all sorts of other things like that. So really, there was always kind of that foundation in place at a very early age. I had some artistic ability. My parents saw that early on. They were like, all right, well, he's not gonna do well in athletics. He might as well find some skill that he's really good at.
Sounds like you were pretty creative. So.
And so I learned how to draw and all that stuff.
Okay.
I went through the whole medium gauntlet, worked with just about every medium imaginable, and learned a lot about image and shot, image composition, color, a lot of things that later on would be transferable skills to filmmaking, and I think which gave me, when it was eventually time to make that decision and veer off onto that path, I had a lot more skills in place than I was aware that I had prior to that.
Right. Now, did you go to school for filmmaking, or did you go another creative route?
Up till that point, HD video hadn't come out yet.
Right.
And so if I wanted to be a filmmaker, I had to either learn on film, which, I never grew up with, there was never any problem eating growing up, but I didn't grow up in a family that could afford, 16 millimeter video camera and all those, things that come along in order to make, a legitimate looking film. So I went to school to be a writer.
Okay.
And I focused mainly on story structure. Like, this was sort of my own kind of concentration. I wanted to go in, I was like, all right, I want to be the best writer I can possibly be. And I want to write, and I want to learn things that will be an asset to me as a screenwriter in particular, not just a writer. But and so I focused a lot on language, word usage, vernacular, just the linguistic aspect of writing, word selection, what the words that people use say about that individual. I also focused on story structure, which is important. I mean, I think anybody who wants to be a filmmaker or just work on movies in general, whether it's as an actor, a director, or a writer, you need to really understand story structure to just kind of understand what the characters are doing. It gives you that backdrop to kind of, that structure, and even if you don't want to follow the structure, you need to know the structure in order to not follow it.
Right.
And I was also working at a video rental store, remember those?
Yes.
I did that when I was in college as well, so that allowed me to watch a lot of movies, several a night for 2 years, almost every night. And so I also saw a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And I graduated college, and by this point, it's somewhere along the lines in college, I decided I wanted to be a writer. I don't know why. I just kind of got caught up in the whole college thing, and everyone wants to be a writer in college.
And everyone's writing all the time,
all
those papers, so that makes sense.
And so I pursued that. I was going to be a journalist for a little bit, and I worked at a scholarly journal as a graduate assistant in college, and then after I graduated, I found a writing job pretty quickly afterwards as a sports writer and content editor for just this really small web page. And it was a hockey website, and did a lot of scouting work, and I'd write some articles and stuff. And I didn't make a lot of money, but it gave me a lot of experience working with people. I was the content editor, which means I did a lot of copy editing, and that'll puts you in it's a managerial position where you're not just managing people, but you're also trying to help them along to be better writers. As a copywriter, you want them to be better writers simply so you don't have to keep making these adjustments every time they turn in an article.
Yeah, it makes your job easier.
But it also, I think you learn a lot from teaching people as well. And after a couple years, I just felt like this is, I think everybody gets to a point, I was in my late 20s by this point, and everybody gets to a point oftentimes in their late 20s, if maybe earlier if they're lucky, where they're like, I don't, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
And, what do I want to do? This isn't what I want to do. And thankfully, I didn't have a lot of bills or student debt. I wasn't married. I don't have any kids or anything. So I had the opportunity of just saying, I'm going to quit my job and be a filmmaker. And
wow, it sounds like you went ahead and went after
Yeah.
your dreams. And even with the writing experience, how do you feel that has kind of helped you even, have you gotten a chance to write anything on your own? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always wanted to be a screenwriter, even while I was working as a journalist. One of the things I wanted to do was be a screenwriter. There's a lot of screenwriters I really like William Golden. There's a lot of the classics, but I also love like Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and a lot of more modern filmmaker. Really, I really like the writer-director, the auteur, and that's always what I wanted to be, although I had no background in directing, so it's just kind of like, well, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
And while I was doing that, I was also doing a little bit of acting work, just mostly extra work, but I had a couple little featured extra parts where I didn't have a line, but I took some direction. I had to go through wardrobe. I got paid a little bit better.
Right.
And inevitably, all three of those jobs, the scenes were cut completely.
Oh.
But I still have some great horror stories from them, and I made a little bit of extra money, and I had a lot of experience just kind of seeing what a big budget set looks like, how it's run, how tightly everything is run.
Right.
And I also saw just other things that I was thinking, you never want to be egotistical in art. You really can't afford to be, but because you have to have a very thick skin, and usually when you're very egotistical, that balloon can very easily get popped. But you have to be very confident too, because you have to be able to keep getting back up after you get knocked down.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of confidence comes in that. And so I was looking around, and I was thinking, I'm not a better filmmaker than them because I don't have the experience, but there are things that I can do cheaper than what they're doing. I just saw a lot of money being wasted. And so I just had that in the back of my head, and I ended up joining Pittsburgh Filmmakers.
Okay.
And at this point, this was I was trying to, see if any of this confidence was unfounded, or if this was just me with my head up my rear, or what. I'm gonna take some classes. If I'm any good, then cool, this is something I can pursue. If not, then I can move on with my life and say, well, at least with a clear conscience.
Absolutely.
And so I took some classes, started with some screenwriting classes, and that just stoked the fires, taking those screenwriting classes. That really lit a fire under me, and I got the bug at that point if I hadn't caught it by then. And so I took some video production classes, again with the same mindset. If my work is crap, I'm not going to give up, but I am going to back off.
Yeah.
And it ended up being not embarrassing.
Took the name Boomer, started using it. Friends called me Boomer. Then everybody I'd meet, I'd bark, well, hey, I'm Boomer. So I'm just going to use that name, and they started calling me Boomer. It felt good to be called Boomer. So I just kept up with the name for a long time, and it became me. Back in 2010, I petitioned the court here in Pittsburgh to change my name legally to Boomer the dog.
What would you consider is probably your favorite aspect of, would you consider yourself more of a screenwriter, a director? Like what's I guess, what do you love about, or you could say all, I mean, we all want to say we
difficult.
love it all.
That's
but,
difficult.
yeah.
I do like some things more than others. I do like it all, but in different, I feel like everything offers a different form of mental stimulation. There's something
True.
differently enjoyable about each and every one. Honestly, I like directing the most. I like the psychoanalytical aspect of directing.
Okay.
I joke with people on set, but there is some truth to it. It's the closest that you can be to being a god as a human. You form these person's minds, you tell them what to do, and then they do it. And if they don't do it right, you tell them to do it again.
That's true. Until
And
they get it to what you want it to be.
exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes you kill them off, and
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want with them.
Absolutely.
And if you don't like what they're doing, you can change it.
Very
and
true.
There's a certain power
Yeah.
that comes with that, and it's power you can't abuse, because I think
Right.
that power comes. You're given that power from trust, and you obviously can't abuse that trust. But at the same time, it is something that keeps drawing me back. It's something that just it's like a drug. I call it the on-set high, where there's a certain energy and electricity. I really like being a producer, though. The last year, I've gotten into producing some stuff.
So do you want to go into talking about anything that you've produced or that you've
Sure.
directed?
Well, as I said, I wanted to be a screenwriter, and it was because the more I was getting into the movie industry, the more painfully clear it was becoming that screenwriters there are a lot of them. There are a lot of screenwriters. It's one of the jobs in the movie industry you can have a real full-time job and you can still do. And there aren't a lot of working screenwriters. The majority of screenwriters teach English somewhere else or screenwriting somewhere else, or they live out in LA as a studio writer, punching up screenplays, writing TV shows, writing jokes, etc. And so the more I learned about that aspect of the industry, the more painfully clear it was becoming to me that I had to either move out to LA and work with an agency as a reader or something, or move in a different direction, move more into the production side of things. And so I already enjoyed working behind the camera as like a director of photography, and I wasn't really doing real director of photography work at that point. I was mostly just pointing and shooting.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the shot composition aspect of it, and so we're like, all right, well, let's try and produce a screenplay I wrote. And so I spent a couple months making sure it was good. It's titled Transients.
Okay.
And I went ahead and produced it. It was about 6 months of pre-production. We wanted to do it right.
Of course.
So we had a nice big crew. It was a studio style shoot. It was an independently financed and produced feature, or short. It would be great if it was a feature.
Yeah.
But we made it as studio-like as we could from a production standpoint.
Okay.
So, things like safety, gear, crew, everybody had one job and only one job. No, there weren't people, wearing multiple hats.
That's good, yeah.
Which you really, it's nice early on to have that to learn, but I was past that point as I had worked on enough of those productions, so I wanted to kind of oversee something that was a little bit larger in scale and kind of jumpstart my filmmaking career,
Absolutely.
if you would.
Do it right,
Yeah, otherwise you're waiting for someone else to give you that opportunity. And it's like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm going to give myself that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
And the movie turned out pretty good. We screened it at the Hollywood Theater in Dormont.
Okay.
Had about 2/3 filled the theater, so pretty good.
Yeah.
I screened it alongside my creative partner and the Transients director of photography, Joe Busey's feature, The Painter. That also marked us collaborating. He's a creative collaborative partner of mine.
We could just get out of here. Let's just go, like right now,
Ava, I'm not gonna stop.
I'm still getting confused all the time, and these people won't even let me see my daughter. Let's just get out of here.
Ava, come inside. Sir.
Sir, if you don't leave now, I'll be forced to call the police.
So I recently represented Carnegie Screenwriters at the 48-Hour Horror Festival. It was just this past October.
Oh, great.
I had represented them in the regular 48-hour contest in the summer, and despite some severe bumps in the production, we managed to get the movie in on time. It was pretty decent.
Now, what were those bumps? If you know what I'm talking about.
We got the set. We were about 2 hours into production, and the location manager, the owner of the location, said, "I would rather you not shoot the script at my location." And I wasn't about to debate with him. And I said, "All right, no problem. We'll shoot something else." And I was like, "Oh God, what are we gonna shoot?"
Yeah.
And I can't blame him. There was some rough language in it. Probably should have screened the script past him before we decided to have production. But we had shot some other stuff there that he didn't seem to mind that I thought was even worse. So whatever.
Right.
But so I went through my phone and I had a treatment of a script that I wrote. And so I just CC'd the entire call sheet, sent that to him, and I was like, "We're shooting this." And then I went to the actors in makeup and explained to them what their lines were gonna be and everything.
That's incredible.
And
yeah.
We managed to get it off, and we managed to wrap at like 8 p.m. too. Like,
Wow.
so I mean, we shot it all in like 7 or 8 hours, which is on itself for a 48-hour film was pretty impressive. But
Especially one that was kind of, it sounds like,
yeah,
just last minute thrown out to everybody.
We literally made up the ending. Like, I was like, "All right, how are we gonna end this?"
Yeah.
And I kind of figured it out as we were shooting another scene in it.
Sounds fun though.
But yeah, and that's what the 48's all about. It's all about, that's what filmmaking is all about
Absolutely.
in general. It's all about taking that problem, flipping it over, and making it into something that is an asset, and also gives you a cool story, an anecdote to tell
Absolutely,
on
yeah.
shows such as this. But it went really well, and Joe, who was the director of photography for that as well, him and I were feeling really confident. So we had a shoot in September that we were on. We were working as the lighting crew for, and it was in Detroit and in the hotel. And basically, whenever we weren't working, and even during we were working sometimes, we were discussing how we wanted to make this really super large-scale horror film for the 48-hour horror film contest, which was this was in September. The contest was in mid-October.
Okay.
And so we're figuring it out, and then Joe goes, "Let's just get 100 actors." I was like, "Yeah,
Big
why
scale,
not?
yeah.
Why not? This is crazy, why not? I don't know how we're gonna do this, but okay, yeah, why not?" We like to challenge each other and push each other and then come through with it and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we did that."
Right, right.
And so, long story short, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. We only got about 30 actors. But,
Only, that's a big group to
pretty
pull
good.
together for,
It was solid. And it's enough to have some fun with as a filmmaker.
Absolutely.
And we had about a 20, 25 person crew. So it was a 60, 70 person cast and crew. We drew natural disaster, and so we decided to make like a post-apocalyptic movie, you know, and it's called Last Rain.
Okay.
The idea is, the premise is basically that the water table has all been poisoned by some sulfuric lead rain, and you know, the world is slowly dying, and the population is slowly dying as a result because everything's been poisoned.
Right.
And you know, I mean, it taps into the, you know, the cultural issues that we're going through right now. So I think people can relate to it a little bit more than you know, like a slasher movie. Not that those are pretty sweet too.
Right, yeah.
But we had that going for us, and we also just really wanted to make something that we love gore and special effects and blood and all of that, and so we wanted to make something that was really a celebration of that.
Okay.
And so we're writing the script. We did a writer's room for the script. We tried to do this like a professional studio shoot, so we had a writer's room.
Great.
And came up with a script. We didn't really know how we were going to choreograph or shoot the final massacre scene, so In the script, it just says death happens. And then,
Simple enough.
yeah. So then I called up the makeup artist, Eve Negley, and talked to her for about a half an hour on the phone, you know. So what do you want? I was like, I want a fish hook. She's like, oh. And I was like, how about some buckshot to the face? And she's like, oh, can you send me reference photos? And I was like, oh God, I have to look at it.
Hey, I mean,
But
your vision needed to come to life. You had to pass it on. And
Exactly. And we didn't win as many awards as we would have liked, but we still won most soul staining, which is more or less most disturbing. Which,
right.
For a horror film contest, that is a victory for me.
That is absolutely a victory. And now it sounds like, because you had about 30 people, you said, it sounds like it would have been a big undertaking even for the makeup and the special effects. And
yeah, we had, I think we had 5 or 6 people in makeup.
Wow.
Eve was the key makeup artist, but we had people designing some latex wounds. We had somebody fabricating some teeth. We had buckets and buckets of fake blood, literally buckets and buckets of fake blood.
Sounds exciting,
We had a line of people lining them up, covering them with gore and dirt and everything. And we had 2 units, split units, so there were 2 cameras running, shooting different scenes at the same time. That was the only way we'd be able to pull something like that off in that scale.
Right, in that time period too.
I mean, it was only about a 10-hour shoot, which is good for any shoot.
Absolutely.
And we were the first people to turn our movie into. We were so early that I had to contact the director of the contest to make sure we were at the right place. She's like, I'm on my way.
Oh, wow. That's pretty funny.
But yeah, and really, we've been riding high since then.
Okay.
Just feeling really confident, you know, really trying to challenge ourselves.
It's been 2 months since we saw a drop of fresh water. 2 months of seeing our friends and family die. 2 months of disease and dysentery. 2 months of this hell raining from the sky, burning our skin, and killing our children. And this motherfucker is hoarding all the water while we drink this shit. While we die in the street! I say, we take it back! Yeah! Let's go!
So what projects have you worked on recently?
Well, I just wrapped, like just a couple days ago, I wrapped this shoot called Gornos. I was script supervisor.
Okay.
So I wasn't writer or director or anything, but you know, I'm trying to be a working filmmaker, and so I'm going to take whatever job anyone is willing to pay me for. And I can do most of the jobs on set too, and it's good experience, it's good networking, and again, it's a job, and I really need a job.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was 18 days in a row, which was
Wow.
a marathon.
Absolutely. Surprised thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Surprised you're still alive and ticking.
I am too. I was very nervous going in. It was like, wow, I tried to bank some sleep. You know, it didn't really work. You just try and eat well, and whatever hours you do have, try and sleep in them.
There you go. There you go.
But no, it was a marathon, and I'm glad to have a couple days off. I actually have a meeting after this for a production that I'm for a movie I'm helping produce, and I'm cinematographer for, called Reckless.
Okay.
And so it never really ends.
Tell us a little bit about Reckless. Is it also in the, you seem to kind of go towards the gore and the,
yeah,
that seems to be something that, you know, is your niche that you like.
Yeah, well, I like to say that I do dark comedies.
Okay.
A lot of them, so like Transients was kind of like an action thriller.
Okay.
Last Rain was a horror thriller, but all of them have just kind of like cheesy one-liners and stuff like that. One of my favorite movies growing up was Army of Darkness, and I love movies like Fight Club and Natural Born Killers, and all those movies just have these, and Tarantino, of course. So
right.
they're just these great, meaty funny quotes, and they're dramatic films, but they still have that element of brevity, and sometimes at the most inappropriate times.
Absolutely, that's what makes it
And
kind of fun.
I love that. Yeah, it makes it fun, and I think it's a lot more challenging as a filmmaker to tell those types of stories, because it's difficult to communicate that to an actor, and I think it's just difficult to communicate that in general because it's a very serious tone, but it's not. And you just
Right.
kind of have to go with it and hope that it works out.
There you go.
But Reckless, Joe said that he wanted to do a Bonnie and Clyde style film.
Okay.
And so he was giving me a basic premise. Bonnie and Clyde for millennials is what
Okay, all
he described
right.
it as. And so he was running down the basic treatment, and I said, oh, this sounds a lot like Natural Born Killers. Have you ever seen this? And he's like, no. And I was like, you should probably check it out. And so we watched it, and he's like, oh, this is fantastic. And he's like, this is great. Yeah, we're making like a millennial Natural Born Killers. And I was like, yeah, I know.
So it was right up his alley then,
And he wrote and directed it, so I'm helping as producer and director of photography, basically
Okay.
being the second set of creative eyes, the person who, if he's frazzled, I'm gonna say, we got this. Or if somebody's
Right.
trying to rush, I can say, we're good, we're good.
Yeah.
Or if, they're not rushing, I can be like, we gotta go. But
Right.
just a creative voice to balance the director and the other producers. And we've all worked together a lot, so we have a very good chemistry. I just did a location scouting and tech scouting on Tuesday, a couple days ago. Basically just seeing what we had in terms of locations, seeing what the locations look like.
Right.
Seeing where the light's coming from, seeing potential problems.
Yeah.
Just trying to get as many of the surprises out of the way as humanly possible.
Sounds like you've been busy.
Yes.
And sounds like you're continuing to keep yourself busy. Now, what advice would you give to any aspiring actor, filmmaker, producer, anybody that's interested in this business, especially because for you came, not exactly intentionally into this field. Any advice you would like to give to anybody that's, looking into this field and kind of curious like you, having that moment of, what do I want to do with my life?
Well, I would say, for one, try it, and never give up on the dream. If it's a dream that you really, really are passionate about, and it was something that I really was passionate about, it is something that you think about all the time. Right. And if it is something you think about all the time, then you should probably pursue it, or get help, depending on what that thing is that you're thinking about all the time. But no, for me, it was, you don't know if you're any good until you try, and you don't know if you're any good if you give up. So you got to try, and you can't give up.
Well, that is great advice. I thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your future projects. And that's our show. Thank you so much for joining us for Fade In, presented by Carnegie Screenwriters. I'm your host, Daisy Jade, and we will see you next time.